Viewers, we're going to start off with all the updates coming in from the Israel-Hamas war. Intense fighting continues as Israel has expanded its ground offensive in Gaza. Israeli strikes have now targeted refugee camps. This latest move threatens to derail the ongoing hostage release talks, and this as the war is now expanding well beyond Israel's own borders. We will begin with what's happening on ground for that. In the latest, Israel has confirmed that it attacked a densely populated refugee camp in North Gaza. It's called Jabalia Refugee Camp. Palestinian health officials say that at least 50 Palestinians were killed in Israeli strikes on the Jabalia Refugee Camp. Now, we will be showing you visuals on your screens which show the scale of the devastation caused in the aftermath of the attack. You can see what is left of the region. Now, Israel army says it secured a central Hamas stronghold in the refugee camp airstrike. The Israeli Defense Forces have announced that its fighter jets eliminated commander of Hamas Central Jabalia Battalion, who they say was one of the leaders responsible for the deadly terror attack on October 7th. Intense fighting has taken place in Gaza in the last 24 hours, and this as Israel continues to pound Gaza relentlessly as it has sent its ground forces into the enclave. Israel says its troops have hit anti-tank missile launching cells and observation posts, seizing many guns and explosives and killing dozens of militants. While Hamas armed wing said that it had ambushed troops in northern Gaza, with its fighters having opened fire on 3 Israeli military vehicles. Now, the Israeli army later said 2 of its soldiers were killed during combat operations in northern Gaza. Next, moving on to the hostage situation. The military wing of Hamas says that the group plans to release some non-Israeli hostages that they have been holding in the coming days. In a video statement, the group announced that the release had been arranged through mediation by some nations, though these nations were not named. Hamas also did not reveal how many hostages would be freed, but it said that the group no longer had the desire or need to keep them, which could mean either they will be returned or they will be executed. It could mean several things as of now. Of course, there is no clarity on that. Meanwhile, Qatari Prime Minister has told visiting Thailand Foreign Minister that efforts are on to secure the release of the hostages. However, after the Israeli strike on Gaza's refugee camp, Qatar has warned that Israeli aggression can undermine the talks on hostages. Now, the war is expanding beyond the borders. This was a fear which was prevalent ever since the beginning of the war, and now we are seeing it happen. Tensions have been rising on the Israeli border with Lebanon since the war began, as the fighting continues with militant group Hezbollah based in Lebanon, backed by Iran. On Tuesday, Lebanon accused Israel of white phosphorus attacks, over which it said it would file a complaint to the United Nations. Elsewhere, Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi rebels said that they attacked Israel on Tuesday. They quote-unquote launched a large batch of ballistic missiles and a large number of armed drones as well, and they were launched at Israel. Now, the Houthi rebels pledge more attacks against Israel if its war on Hamas in Gaza continues. Now, shifting focus to the aid situation in Gaza, which remains a pressing issue all over the world. Dozens of Egyptian volunteers at the Rafah crossing facilitated the movement of aid trucks into Gaza on Tuesday. Take a look at these visuals. Now, some figures came out from the White House as well. The White House said that 66 trucks of humanitarian assistance entered Gaza in the last 24 hours and that dozens more are expected to be cleared for deliveries. US acknowledges that the level of truck aid delivery so far is just a fraction of how much is needed in Gaza. US officials say they would like to reach up to 100 trucks a day. Meanwhile, the United States is sending an additional 300 troops to West Asia. Pentagon says the troops would be going from the United States but would not be in Israel, and they are intended to support regional deterrence efforts and further bolster U.S. force protection. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken spoke with the Israeli president via phone and reiterated U.S. support to Israel's right to defend itself. Blinken will begin a new tour to West Asia amid the war on Friday, and he will visit Israel and make other stops in the region as well. In other updates, Bolivia has announced that it is cutting diplomatic ties with Israel as it demands an end to attack in the Gaza Strip. Bolivia accused Israel of committing crimes against humanity and has become the first country to sever ties with Israel over war with Hamas.
humanitaria a los afectados en la Franja de Gaza, quienes atraviesan una grave crisis sanitaria que amenaza.
El Estado Plurinacional de Bolivia exige el cese de los ataques en la Franja de Gaza en el marco de su posición principista de respeto a la vida. Ha tomado la determinación de romper relaciones diplomáticas con el Estado de Israel en repudio y condena a la agresiva y desproporcionada ofensiva militar israelí que se realiza en la Franja de Gaza y la amenaza de la paz y la seguridad internacionales.
Now, for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Listen in.
The White House on Monday agreed with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that a ceasefire would only play into Hamas's hands. However, the Biden administration in recent days has been warming up to a humanitarian pause, mostly to get aid to Gaza, but also because while the majority of Americans support Israel's right to defend itself and also its war against Hamas, there are deep divisions among Democrats on Capitol Hill, not to mention a drop in Biden's poll numbers among Democrat voters. Less than 20% of Democrat voters now say they'll vote for Biden again in 2024 because of his unwavering support for Israel. The Democrats in Congress are now divided into two camps as well, those that are staunch supporters of Israel and those that are on the left and are vocally pro-Palestinian. It's also important to note that the American public, well, as I mentioned, the majority do support America's support for Israel. The American public is also very impatient when it comes to wars and U.S. involvement. While right now that support is there, it's unclear as the war drags on and the casualties on both sides increase how this sentiment may change. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.